California. A warm August evening in 2025. The San Bernardino Mountains stood tall in the distance, their peaks glowing orange under the fading sun. It was the kind of night that felt safe, ordinary, uneventful. Families sat down for dinner. Children played on sidewalks, their laughter echoing into the twilight. Teenagers gathered in gas station parking lots, scrolling on their phones, sipping sodas. Cars rolled in and out of suburban shopping centers, headlights cutting across the darkening streets dotting one of those shopping strips in Yucaipa, California. A gray pickup truck pulled into a spot outside a Big Five sporting goods store. Behind the wheel was 33-year-old Rebecca Haro. In the back seat, strapped into a car seat, was her 7-month-old son, Emmanuel. A baby with soft brown hair, crossed eyes that made him instantly recognizable, and a smile that had lit up every family photo for the past half-year. Rebecca would later tell police she leaned over to change Emmanuel's diaper before going inside the store. That's when she claimed it happened. A shadow appeared. A stranger struck her from behind. She said she blacked out. When she came to, minutes later, her baby boy was gone. Just gone. No witnesses, no sound of a struggle. No stranger spotted running through the lot. Only silence. And a mother's screams. That night marked the beginning of one of the most haunting mysteries California has ever faced. The vanishing of baby Emmanuel. It was 7:47 p.m. when the 911 call came in. Rebecca's voice was frantic, trembling, desperate. "Help! Somebody took my baby. Please, please hurry." Deputies rushed to the scene. What they found was chilling. Rebecca sat on the asphalt, clutching an empty car seat, her face swollen around one eye. The truck's doors were flung open. Emmanuel's blanket lay crumpled on the ground. His rattle, a small toy he carried everywhere, still in the back seat. Within minutes, the quiet parking lot had turned into a crime scene. Patrol cars formed. A perimeter. Their flashing lights painted the walls of nearby stores in red and blue. Shoppers froze, whispering in shock. Parents pulled their children close as officers began canvassing the area. A baby had vanished in plain sight. Within the hour, the search intensified. Helicopters thundered overhead, spotlights scanning rooftops and alleyways. K-9 units sniffed through trash bins, fields, and drainage ditches. Deputies swept through every corner of Yucaipa, knocking on doors, questioning residents, searching vehicles, but Emmanuel was nowhere to be found. No crying child, no stroller left abandoned. Not even a footprint. Detectives quickly realized they were missing a crucial tool. There would be no Amber Alert, the system, designed to alert millions of people within minutes of a child abduction, required 3 things: evidence of an abduction, details about the suspect, and a description of a getaway vehicle. In Emmanuel's case, there was none of that. No suspect. No vehicle. Only his mother's account. The San Bernardino Sheriff's Department instead issued a statement. Emmanuel Haro is missing under suspicious circumstances. It was all they could say. Still, the search pressed on. Volunteers gathered. Neighbors held flashlights as they combed fields. Parents hugged their children tighter that night, glancing over their shoulders, wondering if a predator was roaming free. But dawn brought no answers. Emmanuel was still gone. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. Local news anchors repeated Emmanuel's name, flashing his baby pictures across television screens. Reporters filled the parking lot, their cameras pointed at the gray truck. That had become a symbol of fear. And then came the first press conference. Rebecca appeared on camera, her black eye clearly visible. Tears streamed down her face as she begged, "Please, if you have him, bring my baby back." Her husband, Jake, stood beside her. His voice cracked as he pleaded, "Whoever took my son, please keep him safe. Just bring him home." For many watching, it was gut-wrenching. A young couple torn apart by tragedy. A baby ripped away from his family. Across the nation, parents held their own children a little closer that night. But for detectives, questions were beginning to form. On Saturday, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department made an unsettling announcement. Rebecca's story didn't add up. Her timeline was shifting. The details of her alleged attack weren't consistent. She had described being struck violently, but doctors confirmed her injuries were too minor to match her version of events. A swollen eye, yes, but no concussion. No lasting damage. Security cameras from nearby stores provided no evidence of a stranger. No attacker was caught slipping into the shadows. No car was seen speeding away with a baby. The evidence simply wasn't. Then came the most shocking revelation of all. Rebecca stopped cooperating. The mother who had been crying on camera, begging for her son's safe return, now refused to answer police questions. The sheriff's department issued a blunt statement. Foul play could not be ruled out. The suspicion, for the first time, shifted inward toward Emmanuel's own mother. News of the case spread rapidly. And just as quickly, the public divided. On one side were those who defended Rebecca. They argued that trauma could cause confusion, that victims of violence often misremember details. To them, Rebecca was a mother who had suffered an unthinkable crime, now being unfairly blamed. On the other side were skeptics. They saw the inconsistencies, the lack of evidence, and the sudden silence. To them, Rebecca was hiding something. Social media exploded. Hashtags demanding justice for Emmanuel trended nationwide. Comment sections lit up with arguments. Some prayed for the baby's safe return. Others insisted that the truth was already clear. Even organizations took notice. The Uvalde Foundation for Kids, which had initially offered a $5,000 reward for Emmanuel's return, suddenly withdrew its support. Their statement was cautious, but their doubts were obvious. The story had stopped being a local tragedy. It was now a national scandal. Behind the scenes, detectives dug deeper. They searched the Haro home. They combed through Rebecca's phone records, her financial statements, her online activity. They interviewed friends, relatives, and neighbors. Whispers began to spread. Rebecca and Jake had faced financial struggles. Their marriage had seen tension. Family conflicts lingered beneath the surface. Investigators considered every possibility. Was this a kidnapping? A staged abduction? A tragic accident covered up with a desperate lie? Psychologists who studied parental abductions pointed out disturbing patterns. When parents claimed their children were taken by strangers, inconsistencies often follow. False stories, shifting details, desperate performances in front of cameras. And in many of those cases, the truth was darker than anyone imagined. The public couldn't ignore the comparisons. The case of Susan Smith in South Carolina, 1994. She claimed her car was hijacked by a black man who kidnapped her 2 young sons. The truth? She had drowned them herself. Her lie had gripped the nation for 9 days before the horrifying confession. Or Casey Anthony in Florida, 2008. She insisted her daughter Kaylee had been kidnapped by a babysitter. In reality, Kaylee had died under suspicious circumstances, and her mother was accused of staging a cover-up. The trial captivated the world. Both cases began with a mother pointing to strangers. Both ended with devastating revelations. Was Rebecca's story following the same path? Detectives never said, but their silence was deafening. As the weeks passed, Yucaipa was left shaken. Candlelight vigils were held in Emmanuel's name. Strangers placed flowers and teddy bears outside the Big 5 sporting goods store. Local churches prayed for the baby's safe return, but as hope faded, grief turned to suspicion. Parents whispered to one another at playgrounds. Neighbors avoided Rebecca on the street. Social media became a battlefield of theories and accusations. Some still believed. Others were certain, and Emmanuel was still gone. Through it all, Jake Haro remained in front of cameras. His pleas grew more desperate with each passing day. He begged whoever had his son to return him. He asked the public for help, for prayers, for information. But his eyes told a story of their own. The pain of a father who had lost his child. And perhaps the confusion of a man who no longer knew whether to stand beside his wife or question her every word. Months have passed since that night in August. Emmanuel's toys remain untouched. His crib remains empty. His photos, taped to lampposts and store windows, have begun to curl and fade in the California sun. There have been no arrests, no suspects, no new leads. The San Bernardino Sheriff's Office still asks for the public's help. They urge anyone with information to come forward. Anonymous tips can be left with We Tip. Every detail, they say, matters. But to this day, Emmanuel is missing. 7 months old, too young to walk, too young to speak, too young to defend himself. Emmanuel Haro should have been crawling across the living room floor, pulling himself up on furniture, babbling his first words. Instead, he is a face on a missing poster, a name whispered in prayers. Was he taken by a stranger, vanishing into the night with no witnesses and no trail? Or was the truth far closer to home, something darker, something hidden? Until the truth comes out, one haunting question lingers. If a baby can vanish in the safety of his mother's arms, could it happen to yours? If you have any information on the disappearance of Emmanuel Haro, contact the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. If the story touched your heart, don't let it fade into silence. Every missing person is more than a name. They're a life, a memory, a voice that still matters. If you believe stories like this should never be forgotten, please like, share, and subscribe to help keep their memory alive. Together, we honor the lost. Together, we give silence a voice, because remembering isn't just love,